So anyway, can you tell me a little bit about the setting and the character that you've decided to use? Just that'll give me little bit of a better idea of where you're coming from.
All right, so I was thinking about have you seen Brazil?
Yes.
So I was thinking something kind of loose inspired by the AC repairman from Brazil, kind of like basically kind of like a junk collector and dealer, but like in a post scarcity society. So like like hostile organizations would be stuff like the homeowners association and the police and stuff who are annoyed about this old throwback who keeps they throw away their trash and he goes and starts digging into that looking for things to repair so and then his potential allies would be things like kind of hipster yuppies interested in his repurposed stuff just to kind of be cool and edgy or like his fellow people fellow other junk collectors and dealers you would interact with and stuff like that.
Okay, that's a pretty interesting setting. So it's sort of almost semi-cyberpunk, but not with a more surreal twist.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you for something a little more standard, that's fine too.
No, that's good. The only thing is that the onus is going to be on you for a lot of the kind of how this all works. So anyway, if as long as you're clear on what you want to do, I like the idea. So I'd say let's go for it and see what happens. Can you tell me a little bit about the attributes and the skills that you've chosen, or have you put that together? Anyway, the way that the game starts is that you usually always start with a cutscene. There are other ways to do it, but really it's just the easiest approach. And a cutscene, I don't know if you have dice in front of you.
I do, yeah.
Okay, the easiest thing would be if you have 3 sets of percentile dice. You can just throw them all at once. But before you do that, first, if you'll have to come up with at least a framework of what it is that's going to get you started on your mission. Usually, a lot of the game for a sort of a way to get started uses potential patrons or people who assign missions or ways that get you motivated or some sort of a catalyst that motivates you to get to a goal. So, if nothing else, you can always use the old saw of you meet someone in a bar and, that person tells you about X, which you then decide is something that you need to do for whatever reason. I don't know if you have anything in mind for kind of what the city looks like that your character is running in. Do you have a name for your guy?
Let's see. Let's go with Laurel. Let's go with Laurel Raban.
Raban. Okay. That sounds good. So, does Laurel have any sort of places where he likes to hang out that would be like a good starting point where where an adventure would start for him?
Well, he doesn't really work with the patron. Like my initial thought was something like he spots someone throwing out something that looks really cool or something like that. But like in the gated community, and so then has to like find his way into that gated community or something. But
okay.
No, but like from a patron perspective, like that was something like some kind of hipster things, like somebody who like wants some specific old out of date technology, something that nobody uses anymore.
Yeah.
Like maybe like an old fashioned computer, back before everything was all touch screens and.
Okay, that sounds very cool. So what we'll actually do, it is possible to jump in without this sort of a cutscene or without a conventional cutscene and build a mission kind of around an event. But for this, I'd rather just play it by the book and kind of go with convention because it's going to be easier, which means that the cutscene is there for some sort of a meeting, discussion, information gathering. It doesn't always work out that way, but that's kind of the starting trope to get things going.
No, I agree.
So,
We should definitely go standard. So.
okay, so you're meeting with your patron. Let's just arbitrarily give him a name like Thomas or Tommy Thompson.
All right.
Say that's it's a feller that you happen to know. Maybe you're not close to him, or you could even have a random person if you prefer that drops this mission on you. I don't know if you have a preference.
No, that's fine. Going with, yep, Tommy's fine.
Okay, so we will say that you're sitting down with him. Do you have a particular location in mind? If it's, again, could be a tavern, cafe. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I figure I have like a little tiny shop, just like kind of big enough for like one person, to come in and stand inside, like, and the walls are just lined with junk that I'm, collecting and working on and trying to find someone to actually, take, because nobody wants any of this stuff anymore.
Very good. That sounds awesome. Okay, in that case, we've got our idea of what this cutscene is going to look like. Now go ahead and roll 3 percentile dice, and that'll give us our scene qualities.
All right. Let's see. I got an 88, a 32, and a 35.
Okay, 32, 35, 88. That gives you furniture strewn. That sounds about appropriate for your. It's maybe a little bit loosely interpreted, but it works for your tight little closet that it's just cluttered with stuff.
Sorry, I misunderstood. 88 was what?
Furniture strewn, which
furniture strewn. Yep.
Means just in this case you can just take it to mean cluttered. Yep. A 35, which is background noise, which also makes a lot of sense. If you've got a little closet of a shop, there's just a lot of stuff going on. And
gears ticking, clocks that never advance.
Yeah, and just plain old, it sounds like this may be a place that a lot of people may frequent, so that may be part of it. But then the third piece you've got is an atmosphere of hate and anger in the background. So there's probably just some cheesed off people who are arguing someplace in the background. The reason you bring in these scene qualities is that you can use those for a free bonus. And that's why you kind of want to incorporate those into the scene, because if you find some way to leverage that, you basically get a very large bonus for free to getting particular things done or having questions fall the way that you want them to. So that's why it's important, if you can, to work these things in to say, okay, it's furniture strewn. I can maybe take advantage of having a very cluttered place. There's background noise that may become valuable for me to do certain things. And this background atmosphere of hate and anger, meaning people arguing in the background, may be something you can leverage depending on what happens. Okay, a person we don't need to roll for. We already know who that person is. You may optionally roll for an item, but we can do that as the conversation goes through. So the first piece is, and you can just use kind of freeform exposition, that you're in your shop. You have the guy that Tommy Thompson, who stops by and maybe purchases junk every now and then, happens to be looking to strike up a conversation with you today. And we now refer to what's called structured questions for persons, which is just kind of a template to say, here are the sorts of key things that are exchanged for information. In this case, at a starting cutscene, you always get a mission for free. So as you go through your discussion with Tommy about the weather and what's new, you can go ahead and roll a d20.
Okay. I got a 20.
Okay. Very good. That is to research something. And by the way, there's one thing. We need to take one step back. I'm getting ahead of myself. There is plot stress, which is a kind of a counter that keeps track of when unexpected events may trigger. For opening up a new scene, you start with a plot stress of 5. And I'll just keep track of it for you. So I'll let you know when it becomes relevant, or I'll just let you know what plot stress is. But basically, whenever you ask a question or perform a skill check, you are adding to plot stress. And if you can give me actually one roll of the percentile dice, because technically when you open the scene, you need to check against plot stress. If you got a 0, 6 or more, you're fine.
I got a 40, so I'm fine.
Okay. Everything happens as expected. So Tommy Thompson asks you about whether there's something that you can research for him. Apparently he's probably come across some information that he finds is interesting. And research suggests to me it could be a person or it could be an item. In this case, it sounds like your guy's very item focused. So I'd say, you know your research, why not roll a D100 and see what sort of an item he's talking about.
Okay. 84.
Okay, with an 84, he's talking about a particular drawing or painting. So you now may have some questions about, how this might be relevant for your kind of character. I don't know if it naturally brings up some questions to me. I don't know if it does for you. Like, is it expensive? Is it, kind of what's the relevance?
Yeah. So Heather, so like I ask a question and then what? We roll.
Yeah, you can ask a question, we determine the probability, and then roll against that to see if the kind of assertion or question is true or false. And if there's certain things that we're looking at that may be related to particular other things, we can go to other tables and just kind of help fill out the details.
So when I was asking questions, then like what it's related to, like defining the object, or just like.
Yeah.
I guess I'm not. I was a little uncertain too about how this worked, like in your sample too, like how exactly these questions are supposed to.
Yeah. Well, the questions that you can bring down to yes or no questions would be fairly simple. What you try and do is figure out like what's important to know about this, and then come up with what's kind of the most likely thing that answers, what's important here. So if you'd say, why is it relevant? That would suggest a rationale instead of a regular yes/no question, because you're asking back, kind of what's the point of this? And a rationale will give you like an emotion answer.
Oh, yeah, so something like why did you come to me, instead of like an art dealer or something like that.
Yeah, for instance, and you can roll a d20 against rationale, which does nothing against plot stress. So, or you could ask first, does he know the significance, or does he just want it because of reasons? Or is he willing to disclose why he wants it, or is he playing coy and saying, I just want it?
Okay.
So it's kind of your decision as to how do you want to approach this to say, you're researching a painting or drawing, you could decide, what does it look like? Why do you want it? Where is it? All of these questions, it's just a matter of where do you want to start?
All right, yeah, so where is it? Seems like a good point. Is it, so like is it, we sort of like is it in someone's possession, or do you know where it is?
Yeah, do you know where it is? Very good. And what you then do is determine first, do you need to make a skill check for him to disclose that? I would say, and I think you would agree, no. If he wants you to research it, if he wants you to find out more, he's not going to hide that from you. So the question is, does he know where it is? If he wants you to research it, what would you say the likelihood is that he would know? Likely 50-50?
I would say he probably, if he wants me to research it, my guess would be that he doesn't know where it is. Especially like if it doesn't already have, like if he just wants me to find it, I assume that he probably wouldn't know where it is. So probably in this case, I think it'd be unlikely, I think.
Okay, so go ahead and give a percentile roll.
All right. 34.
Okay, at 34, it means that even though it was unlikely, the answer is yes, he knows where it is. And what you can do because of that is go ahead and roll a d20 for a place.
Okay.
Because immediately he'll say, yes, it is at...
I got a 12.
At 12. It is in a library or lab. I suspect in this case, more likely a library, unless you decide it's at a lab because it's being tested for secret messages. It could be, this is your story after all.
Now I'm picturing more, like it's more of like he wants it just because of prestige kind of thing, And so not so much the nefarious secret things going on. So I'd say your library makes more sense.
Okay, so he knows that Tommy's told you it's in the library. He's told you to research it, which doesn't necessarily mean go and steal it for him, but he wants to know more about it. I would say, if you're willing to, next to say, why exactly do you want this? And that will probably need a negotiate skill roll.
Okay.
You have negotiate, I believe, at +1, so that makes it likely that you will succeed at that. And go ahead and roll your negotiate.
And that's still a percentile, right?
Correct.
I got a 37.
Yep, and that increases plot stress. And yes, you easily convince him to say, look, I need to know why you need this, why you're interested in it, and you can follow up with a d20 for rationale.
That is a 9.
9. That is, again, hate or anger. There's, for some reason, he's angry about something having to do with the painting. Now, you can make a conjecture as to what he's angry about.
I'm thinking that he feels that that should be his, maybe historically one of his ancestors owned it or something, or he feels that it shouldn't be public. He should have that he should be able to display it. Maybe his grandparents left it to the library when they passed on. So he wants that back.
That's actually pretty awesome. So if you agree, I would say that that's probably a likely answer. So go ahead and roll percentile. And
I got a 53.
With a 53, yes, that's correct. So as Tommy, as you manage to kind of wheedle out of him, okay, you know where it is. Why do you want it? He goes into an angry tirade about, this was mine, it belonged to me. It should have been mine by rights, but my grandparents, through some sort of a will, which I think was altered after my grandfather was senile, it ended up going to this public resource. And so it sounds to me like the research that's going to be involved isn't just about the painting itself, but also to try and see if you can claim this back for him, by hook or by crook. Does that sound legit?
Yeah, it sounds like he doesn't care as long as it's on his mantle instead of the library mantle. Yeah, it sounds good.
That sounds good. Okay, and then you have other structured questions you can ask. You already know the place. You know what the kind of key item is. You could ask him about pay. I'm sure that he has to pay you for this, but you could ask for extra pay, or you could ask for premium equipment, or you could ask for an ally. I would suggest we don't do that here just to keep things simpler. Or you could ask for another person that he knows as a contact who can provide more information. I don't know if any of those sound appealing to you to try and get.
Yeah, if someone who works in the library or something like that, like perhaps a sympathetic ear, or maybe someone in the library who finds it to be distasteful and they'd be happy to see it gone. Or
that sounds good. Do you have a key contact who can help me with this research? Um, I would guess, and again, it's up to you, but I would say it's probably a 50-50 question, whether you know someone.
Sounds good. An 11.
Okay, with an 11, yes, follow up with another D percentile for person.
Right, that is a 43.
43. So, oh my, that's an early or first love. So it doesn't necessarily have to be literally Tommy Thompson's ex-girlfriend or your ex-girlfriend, but it could be someone who reminds one of that. In this case, I think it does make sense to say, I've got an ex from a long time ago. We were a thing when I was back in my youth, and she's now working there, and she may have mixed feelings, but she's someone I know who may help you in this goal. Okay. If that sounds fair.
Yep, sounds good.
Okay, and for other things to ask about, I would say we can probably go ahead and move on. We've got a lot of things accomplished in this scene, unless you're keen to ask for extra pay or special equipment that you want.
I think I'm more well equipped than he is. Like, I mean, he's coming to me as the expert. Like, I'm the junk man. I know all this stuff. And
okay, so you negotiate probably your usual rate if you're ready to close the cutscene.
Yeah, sounds good.
Based on your skills in asking questions, your plot stress has gone up to 9, so you need to roll percentile to close the scene, and you need a 10 or higher.
I got a 32.
You close the scene successfully, so congratulations, you have managed to get through the cutscene, which isn't so dangerous, but now this is where things start to get hairy for your character. Because we will go ahead and open the next, we'll close this scene and go ahead and open the next one, which is going to be one of 2 meaningful successes that you need to complete your mission, to get to your goal.
Okay.
And completing the mission doesn't mean necessarily that you even find out anything about the painting or that you get it. It just means that you can close the story with a satisfactory ending for your character, which might mean that the painting could blow up for all that matters. It just means you get paid and you don't get in trouble.